Ukraine is a country full of beauty and strength. It has wide fields, strong rivers, and a rich history. For many years, people from different cultures lived together in Ukraine. They spoke different languages, sang different songs, and followed different traditions, but they all called Ukraine their home. Ukraine's land is known for its natural beauty, but its location has always been important in history too. It lies between two big powers, Russia to the east and Europe to the west. Ukraine has always been a place of great importance because of where it is located. For many years, it was controlled by other countries. Ukraine was once part of the Russian Empire, and later it became part of the Soviet Union. During the time when Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, life was difficult for many people. The Soviet Union was made up of several countries controlled by Russia, and Ukraine was one of them. People in Ukraine were not allowed to speak freely or make their own decisions. The Soviet government made the rules, and people had to follow them. Many Ukrainians felt trapped because they could not live the life they wanted. They wanted to be free, to have their own voice and choose their own future. In 1991, everything changed. The Soviet Union broke apart, and Ukraine became an independent country. People were very happy. For the first time, Ukrainians had the chance to build their own country. They celebrated in the streets. Ukraine was now free. Ukrainians dreamed of a future where they could make their own decisions, where they could follow their own path. They were excited to be independent, and they believed that the future would be bright. But building a new country is never easy. When Ukraine became independent, there were many challenges. People had to figure out how to build a government, how to make decisions, and how to create jobs. It was not simple. Some Ukrainians wanted to be closer to Europe. They believed that joining the European Union would help the country grow. They thought it would bring new jobs, better living conditions, and freedom. They wanted Ukraine to be part of a group of countries that shared the same values of democracy and freedom. On the other hand, there were people who felt connected to Russia. These people spoke Russian, followed Russian traditions, and felt a close bond to Russia. They did not want to turn away from Russia. They wanted to remain close to it, and some even believed that Ukraine should be part of Russia. This divide between those who wanted to be closer to Europe and those who wanted to stay close to Russia caused many problems. Ukraine became a country divided in its ideas about its future. While some looked to Europe, others looked to Russia. This divide created tension and disagreement. The country had to figure out what path to take. The question of whether to join Europe or stay close to Russia was something that Ukrainians would have to solve. But this divide didn't just affect the government. It affected people's daily lives. Families, friends, and communities were split over this issue. Despite these challenges, the people of Ukraine were determined to create a better future. They wanted to be free and build a country where they could make their own decisions. They wanted a life that was peaceful and filled with opportunities. This dream of a better future kept them strong and hopeful, even when the road was difficult. In the years after independence, Ukraine faced many struggles. The country worked hard to build its own economy, improve education, and make life better for everyone. However, the divide between those who wanted to be closer to Europe and those who wanted to stay close to Russia only grew stronger. Both sides believed their way was the best for Ukraine, and this led to more disagreements and struggles. The story of Ukraine's independence is a story of strength, hope, and determination. It shows how a country can fight for its freedom and dream of a better future. Ukraine may have faced challenges, but the people never gave up. They continued to hope for a brighter future, and they continued to work hard to make their country better. The future of Ukraine was uncertain, but the strength of its people was clear. They were ready to face whatever challenges came their way. In 2013, a decision was made in Ukraine that would change everything. The president at the time, Viktor Yanukovych, decided not to sign an agreement with the European Union, even though many people in Ukraine wanted to join. They believed that being part of Europe would bring more opportunities for jobs, a better quality of life, and more freedom. They hoped for a brighter future. But when Yanukovych refused to sign the deal with the EU, the people of Ukraine felt betrayed. They were upset and disappointed. The decision to stay close to Russia instead of Europe sparked a huge reaction. People in Ukraine were angry, and many felt their hopes for a better future were being taken away. Thousands of people came to the capital, Kyiv, to protest. They gathered in Maidan Square, a large open space in the center of the city. People waved Ukrainian flags and sang the national anthem. They wanted change, and they wanted a government that would listen to their dreams for a better future. The protests grew bigger each day. Students, workers, families, and even children joined the crowds. They were all united by one idea: Ukraine deserved better. It was very cold during the winter, but the protesters did not leave. They built tents and fires to stay warm and continued to stand in Maidan Square. They stayed strong, believing that they could bring change to their country. At first, the government did not want to stop the protests. They believed the people would give up. But the protests didn't stop. The people wanted their voices to be heard. Eventually, the government began to act against the protesters. Police were sent to Maidan Square to try and stop the protests. They used force, and many people were hurt. Some lost their lives in the violence. But the people of Ukraine refused to give up. They stood strong despite the danger. They believed in their cause, and they knew they had to keep fighting for a better future. By February 2014, the situation in Kyiv had reached a breaking point. The protests were at their peak. President Yanukovych could no longer stay in power. He fled the country, and a new government took over. The people were happy that they had won, but they also knew that their journey was not over. They had changed the government, but there were still many challenges ahead. However, the victory in Kyiv was just the beginning of a new struggle for Ukraine. The situation in the country began to get worse. Russia, which had always had a strong influence on Ukraine, did not like what had happened. Russia saw the new government in Ukraine as a threat. In March 2014, Russian soldiers appeared in Crimea, a region in the southern part of Ukraine. These soldiers did not wear any badges, so it was hard to know who they were at first. But it quickly became clear that they were Russian soldiers. Soon after, Russia announced that Crimea was now part of Russia. This move shocked the world. People in Ukraine felt betrayed once again. They had already lost one part of their country. It was a hard moment for everyone. The people of Ukraine didn't know what to do. They were angry and upset, but they did not give up. They were determined to keep fighting for their country. The situation in eastern Ukraine became even worse. In cities like Donetsk and Luhansk, some people wanted to join Russia. They didn't want to stay part of Ukraine anymore. They wanted to be with Russia. Other people in the region wanted to stay with Ukraine. This disagreement led to fighting. The government in Ukraine sent soldiers to stop the violence. But the fighting grew worse. The country was divided, and war had started in the east. The people of Ukraine were now facing more than just political problems. They were facing a real war. The war caused a lot of pain and suffering. Many homes were destroyed, and families had to leave their homes. People cried as they fled their towns and cities. It was a sad time for Ukraine. But even in the darkest moments, the people did not lose hope. They kept fighting for their country. The protests in Maidan Square had started the change in Ukraine, but the war that followed showed just how strong the people of Ukraine were. Despite the fighting, the loss, and the sadness, they never gave up. They continued to dream of a free Ukraine, a country where they could live peacefully and make their own choices. The war was not over, and the struggle was far from finished. But the people of Ukraine had shown that they were ready to fight for their future. They were determined to win, no matter what. After the protests in Kyiv and the fall of President Yanukovych, Ukraine found itself facing a new, unexpected challenge. While the government in Kyiv had changed, the situation in eastern Ukraine became even more complicated. In the east, the cities of Donetsk and Luhansk were filled with people who were divided over their future. Some of them wanted to join Russia, while others wanted to stay part of Ukraine. This disagreement quickly turned into violence. People started to fight in the streets. The situation became very dangerous for everyone. As the fighting grew, the Ukrainian government sent soldiers to try to stop the violence and protect the country. But the situation did not improve. The fighting in the east became worse, and more people were hurt. Families had to leave their homes, and entire neighborhoods were destroyed. The peaceful land of Ukraine, which was once full of beautiful fields and strong rivers, turned into a battlefield. It was heartbreaking for everyone involved. During this time of war, the people of Ukraine showed their strength. They did not give up, even though their country was in crisis. Soldiers fought bravely to defend their towns and cities. Volunteers worked hard to help those in need. They brought food and supplies to the front lines. People from all parts of Ukraine came together to support one another. Even though the situation was difficult, they never lost hope. They believed that they could rebuild their country and live in peace again. One of the most powerful things that came from the war was the strength and courage of the Ukrainian people. Ordinary people like mothers, teachers, and workers became heroes. They worked together, helped each other, and never gave up on their country. It wasn't just the soldiers who fought, it was everyone. In every city and village, people did what they could to support the war effort. Even when things seemed hopeless, the people of Ukraine kept going. They believed that their strength and unity could help them overcome the challenges they faced. The war in the East was a long and painful struggle. It caused a lot of pain and suffering, but it also showed the world the strength of Ukraine. The people of Ukraine refused to let their country be destroyed. They fought for their homes, their families, and their future. The war in the East tested their will and their courage, but it also proved how strong they were. As the war continued, many people were forced to leave their homes and seek safety in other parts of Ukraine. Some people fled to other countries, but they never stopped thinking about Ukraine. They dreamed of returning home one day, when the war was over and peace had come. It was difficult for everyone, but they knew that their strength would help them through. In the midst of the war, something amazing happened. Artists and musicians began to create works of art that brought hope to the people. They painted murals of peace and freedom on the walls of broken buildings. They wrote songs that spoke of Ukraine's strength and resilience. These acts of creativity helped lift the spirits of the people and reminded them that even in the darkest times, they could still find light. The war in the East was far from over, but the people of Ukraine were not afraid. They knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but they were ready to face whatever challenges came their way. They had already shown how strong they were, and they would keep fighting for their future. The strength of Ukraine came from its people, and they would continue to stand together, no matter what. Even as the war caused pain and destruction, the spirit of Ukraine remained unbroken. The people proved that no matter how tough life gets, they could always find a way to keep going. They believed in their country, in each other, and in the dream of a peaceful future. This belief in themselves and their country was what gave them the strength to survive and keep fighting, even when everything seemed lost. Ukraine was divided by war, but its people were united by hope, and that hope was stronger than any weapon or enemy. The strength of Ukraine was not just in its soldiers, but in the hearts of every person who refused to give up on their country. Together, they would continue to fight for a future where they could live in peace and freedom. In the end, the people of Ukraine showed the world something powerful. The true strength of a nation lies not in its weapons, but in the hearts of its people. They fought against both external enemies and internal struggles, but they never gave up. Through protests in Maidan Square, a painful war in the east, and the heartbreaking loss of parts of their land, the people remained united, driven by the hope of a better future. From the streets of Kyiv to the battlefields of Donetsk, Ukrainians showed their courage, resilience, and undying love for their country. Their fight for freedom and peace was not an easy one. Many lost their homes, their loved ones, and their dreams. But in every struggle, they found strength. They showed that even in the darkest times, there is always hope. Through their creativity, their unity, and their determination, they proved that no matter how difficult life gets, they can rise above it. The people of Ukraine taught us an important lesson. No matter how tough things get, we must never lose hope. Challenges, whether big or small, are part of life, but they do not define us. What defines us is how we respond to those challenges. Do we give up, or do we fight for what we believe in? Just like the people of Ukraine, we must stand strong and stay united in the face of adversity. This story also teaches us the value of community and support. The people of Ukraine helped each other through the hardest times. They supported one another, shared what little they had, and kept going, knowing that together they could overcome anything. This is a lesson we can apply to our own lives. In difficult moments, we should remember the power of community and the importance of supporting each other. As you listen to this story, think about how you can apply these lessons to your own life. Remember, challenges are inevitable, but your response to them will determine your future. Just like the people of Ukraine, you can rise above the difficulties and create a brighter future. What was the most important lesson from the story of Ukraine? A. The power of weapons in war. B. The strength of unity and hope. Please comment your answer below, A or B, and share your thoughts with us. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more great content. Your support helps us create high-quality content for everyone, and if you can, please consider donating to help us keep going. We are working hard to bring you the best lessons, and your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you for being part of our learning community.